Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Sanctuary. It is live Dynasty Draft, Dynasty Startup time. That is right. I am live as we speak in a startup draft with 11 real people. This is not a mock. This is the real thing. So this is a fairly straightforward standard 12-team Superflex tight end premium. It's 0.5 premium. Quite deep. You know, I much prefer those deeper leagues. So we will dive out quickly and I can walk you through the starting spots. It's, as you would expect, fairly standard. Got super flex, so the quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, the super flex spot, and then the internet is frozen and you can't see the draft board anymore. But we will persevere and hopefully it will come back soon. The league is filled with several members who will have my ranks, will have my values as we go into the draft. Here we go. We're back. So as you can see, quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and the super flex. We're going to go through 15 rounds live as we speak. And then the final 13 rounds are going to be slow draft. Don't want to bore you with those super late picks, but 15 rounds is more than enough to get you going. So I'm going to click start. We're going to get going. And as you can see, Gary is on the clock first. Things to mention, this is 3rd round reversal. It was a random draft order. Luckily for myself, I did luck out and land the 112, which obviously very nice in a 3rd round reversal, but also very nice when you consider that I'm having to put up with the draft board as well. And I'm trying to mute the sounds so we don't hear any of those. Josh Allen off the board first. No real surprises there. He's my 101. I think you could make an argument for Lamar Jackson, who then goes off 102. It is 30 seconds per pick. If you are watching this live, feel free to drop any comments. Happy to talk anything through. Any questions, any talk around values or anything like that. I am always happy to have that chat as we are live. Looks like all 12 people are live in the draft, which is a good start. I was a little bit nervous we'd end up with an auto drafter, but no, we are all good. Chase comes off the board, followed by Jefferson. First 2 wide receivers, very chalky so far. This is almost exactly as per sleeper ADP. No big surprises. I guess for me, I'm probably a little bit more of a QB hungry drafter in these superflex formats than most people. So I'd be pushing some more quarterbacks ahead of those 3 wide receivers. Malik Neighbors, the 108, is a little bit surprising to Riverman, but go get your guy, I guess. And we got a running back in the first round as well. Bijan Robinson, 109. I'm excited for this. This is going to be fun. We're 3 minutes in, and we've already got some interesting pick. Brock Bowers with the 110. As I said, this is 0.5 tight end premium. I'm going to be up here. I'm just looking at my draft board. My QB3 is still on the board in Patrick Mahomes. Hard to pass that up here. Looking at the board, I'm tempted to push quarterback until the 3rd round, just given the volume that haven't gone off the board, and that 3rd round reversal does help me. A little bit torn between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Herbert. I think I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown and just trust that with the 3rd round reversal, I know I can still grab a 2nd elite quarterback in that 3rd round and see how the rest of the draft plays out. But 2nd quarter running back, 3rd running back off. We got Ashton Genty, the rookie, gone 203. Really interested to see his value so far in startups. It's been creeping up, normally around sort of a mid to late second round pick in most startups, but I have seen him go in the first in some more let's say, positional value hungry drafts. A lot of my leagues do tend to be quarterback hungry. Little bit surprised we're through 18 picks and there is only 7 quarterbacks off the board, which does feel a little bit light. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you're as quarterback hungry perhaps as I am in these startups. Maybe it's a me thing rather than the rest of the community. I do tend to be a little bit hungrier on quarterbacks than others. So we're 4 picks away from my draft spot here. Just loading up my best available. So looking at ADP, we've got Puka Nakua's just gone. No, that's not the best available. So we've got by sleeper ADP, Trey McBride, Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, Saquon Barkley, Drake London. Looking at my best available, it is shockingly all the quarterbacks, as I said. So I've got Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud, and then Trevor Lawrence. So it's going to be that conversation. Do I push that second quarterback? Do I risk coming back round to the back end of the 4th by grabbing one of the wide receivers? I'll be honest, looking at the board and the way it's gone, I'm just going to grab elite quarterback. So it'll be either Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, or Trevor Lawrence. For me, it just feels so safe and secure getting those 2 elite quarterbacks. I don't feel like I've missed out on huge amounts at the position. Okay, probably missed out on the elite running backs, but I'm happy taking volume approach at that position. So still got my stud wide receiver in Amon Ra Brown. We'll grab a quarterback here just after Gary picks at the 212. Who's he going to pair with Josh Allen? Is he going to risk going position player, or does he go and grab the quarterback? He grabs Drake London. That leaves Jordan Love to me with the, 25th overall pick. Feels very comfortable with that. Still some good position players, but locked down. To me, a QB1 as my QB2. So very happy with the Jordan Love pick there. And then Pestle goes and grabs his first quarterback off the board with Kyler Murray. So through 2 rounds, as you can see, plenty of running backs gone early, which I guess is a little bit of a surprise for me. I know running backs obviously bounced back last year and had a good year. But for me, I still just place that dynasty value in the longer term positions of quarterback and wide receiver. Touch wood, it never happens, but Saquon Barkley, Bijan, Gibbs, they're all 1 injury away from their dynasty value completely plummeting. Got a little bit of a QB run here with Nix, Lawrence, Dak, and then Lad McConkey goes to Pat in the 3rd. 307 overall. So just looking through best availables. So we've got, according to Sleeper ADP, this is so Marion Hampton, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward. So all the rookies. Will be interested to see where that second-tier rookies go in this draft. And then it's the kind of wide receivers. So Garrett Wilson, Jack Smith and Jigba, AJ Brown. In looking at these builds, so nothing hugely stands out. I guess Ryan Judge going 0 QB through 3 rounds. Got elite running back, elite wide receiver, elite tight end. So not too bad of a position to be. Just as we're coming back around to Gary's 3rd pick here. So Josh Allen, Drake London. What 2 players is he going to add to that mix? Rashee Rice. That may be a surprise to people, but I'm really high on Rashee Rice. I think this guy's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver if he's fully healthy on the field. Yes, he's obviously got the injury from last year, but he seems to be making a remarkable recovery. And I'm not concerned about a small suspension. We're talking about potentially 7 to 10 years of a dynasty production. I'm not worried about 2 to 4 games. Gary then secures his second quarterback with Brock Purdy, who, after that long-term contract extension, probably needs a little bit of a bump up in ADP. Anytime a guy's tied to Kyle Shanahan, as the starting quarterback for the next 3 years at least, if not the next 4+ years. That's worth a little bump up in value, and certainly puts him for me in a similar target range now to someone like a Dak Prescott. So as we're coming back down through the 4th round, another running back comes off the board with Achane. Feeling like with all these running backs going early, this is a draft where I'm probably going to end up not drafting very many running backs in the top probably 10 rounds, and we'll just try and attack the position with volume later on. It's how I like to build. I do like that wide receiver QB heavy build, but when the running backs start flying, I'm not someone that's going to chase the run, and I'll happily buck that trend and just scoop up value elsewhere. Travis Hunter comes off in the 4th round. Absolutely fascinating pick. The ceiling is sky high. That's a really interesting build that Luke's building there in terms of Chase, May, McBride, Hunter. Sky high potential. If May produces and Hunter produces, that could be a real powerhouse, but plenty of downside and risk there as well. Lewis grabs his 3rd quarterback, so pairing Jalen Hurts, Puka Nacua, and Dak with Cam Ward. I'm sorry, Puka Nacua being grabbed by Lewis did slip past me there, but no surprises. I think every league I'm in with Lewis, he's got Puka Nacua, so makes sense, but interesting to see grab that 3rd quarterback. Obviously, very little drafting happening in this startup. They are able to trade. They are able to make those moves, but obviously with only 30 seconds per pick, it's pretty tough. So it'll be interesting to see if Lewis can kind of throw his weight around, shall we say, and see if he can scoop up some value in trades later on. Ryan Judge continuing to go 0 QB as well. Bowers, Genty, Harrison, Judkins. Interesting to see those 2 young running backs being paired there, but a distinct hole at quarterback. I'm back up on the clock here. My best available players, I've got Baker Mayfield, Zay Flowers, Bucky Irving, Jalen Waddle. I'm going to go with the wide receiver position. Give me Zay Flowers. Give me Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is one of the most underrated players in Dynasty right now. This is a guy that is electric, has produced incredible production in his first 2 years. This is a guy that was a top 12 wide receiver first 2 years out of the gate. And okay, he's had some injury-plagued seasons, some issues with that offense. Tyreek Hill's taken more and more of the target share away from him, but he's a player that's a Tyreek Hill trade injury away from being probably a top 12 Dynasty wide receiver. Feels like he's significantly undervalued right now. So yeah, very, very happy to get him in the 5th round as my 3rd wide receiver. Let me know in the comments. Do you think my build, I've got Mahomes, St. Brown, Love, Flowers, Waddle, is that something you like? We're moving on in the 5th. 2 more backs off the board with Bucky Irving and Breece Hall. Only the 2 tight ends. Obviously, this is tight end premium, only a 0.5, but interesting to see no Sam Laporta or anything like that. For me, this is really interesting draft because eight of the drafters are members of the Sanctuary. They've got my trade values. They've got my Dynasty rankings. So it always makes fun because, it's always nice knowing they know exactly what I'm thinking. They know who my next best available is. If you want some of those rankings, if you want access to the rookie guide, all of Tom and Tyler's best pool premium content rankings, everything like that, hit the join button down below. You've got to do it from a laptop or PC. For some reason, the app doesn't like it, but hit the join button down below and you can sign up to be a member of the Sanctuary. Christian McCaffrey goes in the 5th round. EV Dokios is building quite a powerhouse for 2025. He has obviously got Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, and then Lamar Jackson. That's a scary team for 2025. Obviously, pretty risky in Dynasty, grabbing those 2 aging backs, but it could well pay off in the short term. And this is a fairly low stakes league, only a $10 league. 90%, I think it's $90 to the first place, $30 to second. So it is tilted towards win it rather than try and just be good and sort of scrape into the playoffs. So fair play, swing for those fences. Gary, obviously at the bookend of the draft opposite me, building a very similar team to myself, got those 2 quarterbacks, and then loaded up on wide receivers with Drake London, Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf. Plenty of upside there, and then scoops up Chase Brown in the 6th. I have to say, I'm slightly shocked. We're at the 601, and what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 running backs off the board by the end of the 5th round. That's maybe the most running back thirsty startup I've been in several years, to be honest. I think as a Dynasty community, we were moving towards devaluing the running back position. Maybe we went too far. It bounced back hugely last year, and maybe we're back to valuing them where we were 10 years ago. Justin Fields goes with the 602. As I said, from the 102, building a very win now roster, very, very aggressive. Plenty of upside, huge risk, but grabbing Justin Fields in the short term, that could be an absolute league-winning move. But is he going to be a starting quarterback in 2026 and beyond? That's the big question. Very, very interesting. Mike then grabs the 3rd quarterback. So he's got Burrow, JJ McCarthy, and Goff, building a nice little room there. Obviously, we still have a team with 0 quarterbacks. So interesting to see if Ryan commits to the 0 quarterback strategy, or does end up getting a little bit desperate and reaching to grab a quarterback here. We'll be fascinated to see what that strategy is and how it plays out. Could be, he leaves the draft with no quarterbacks and then has to try and be aggressive in the trade. Pat, so we've now got 3 teams with 3 quarterbacks. Very, very interesting to see when we get down to Ryan at the 6-10, whether he's going to go quarterback. Through 6 rounds, though, who is your favorite? We've got 30 people watching live and in the chat now. Let me know in the comments, who's your favorite roster so far? What's the best value pick? Tua goes off with the 609. So is Ryan going to commit to the 0 quarterback strategy, or okay? As Tyler says, if you've not hit the like and you're watching, go ahead and do that now. Here we go. I've not been getting comments through. Apologies for ignoring all of your comments. It suddenly just popped up. Right, I'm back on the clock. Sorry, I was too busy trying to load the comments. We have got best available on the board, Kyren Williams, James Cook. For me, best available is the quarterbacks, Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold. I'm going ahead and grab Brandon Ayuk here to keep building out the wide receivers. And then I'm going to go and grab a quarterback. Let's grab my 3rd quarterback, Geno Smith. I love a bit of Geno. I love that potential landing spot with Las Vegas and what that offense could be with Chip Kelly. So now's the question. Ryan Judge, 14 have gone 3 quarterbacks. As Rory says, he's going to grab a quarterback. He does. He grabs Anthony Richardson with the 703. Will be interesting to see if he's come knocking for some trades as we move through. All right, I'm just going to work through some of these comments to see if there's anything that I've missed. Knife, you taking Higgins in a 2nd or Marv? That's very close for me. I'm going to quickly dive across to my trade values to make sure I'm giving you what I would say there. Yeah, I've literally got the gap between them as equal worth a 2nd. So if I'm competitive now and think I can win the title in 2025, maybe I'd lean Higgins. But if I'm looking beyond that, I'd probably lean for the upside of Marv. Another question. Hey, would you trade Higgins and Flowers for Nakua in Dynasty? It's a little bit of an overpay. I'd rather Higgins and Flowers unless like my team was loaded and I needed to try and make a 2-for-1 or something like that. Harry's saying, so starting roster, so it's 10 starters, so quarterback, super flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flexes. Fairly standard. And yeah, of course I'm worried about them watching me draft and strategy, but to be honest, 8 of the 12, as I said, are members active in the Discord, so they pretty much know my strategies and things like that. Right. Do you think Hall in the middle of the fifth is a massive steal? It's tough, isn't it? It's a really risky pick. You know, I love Brees Hall, the prospects. I think the value of him fully healthy is amazing. The downside in the way his speed stats came out last year was a little bit concerning. The fact that he was slower, you know, a full year after the ACL is concerning. I'm a little bit worried about the receiving numbers. Part of the Brees Hall appeal is the incredible receiving volume he's seen, almost as the second target in the Jets offense at times. With Justin Fields under center, we know Justin Fields doesn't check down a huge amount, uses those scrambles quite heavily. So it will be really interesting to see how his usage is. And I'm not convinced that the Jets might not move on from him. You know, if we get into camp, perhaps Isaiah Davis or Brandon Allen's looking good, I don't think the Jets are going to want to pay Brees Hall. They've got Jermaine Johnson, they've got Garrett Wilson, they've got Elijah Vera Tucker, they've got Sauce Gardner, all due big market-setting contract extensions. So I don't know if they're going to want to pay Brees Hall as well. So it could be the Brees Hall's the odd man out. Maybe trade him. Whether you can get, you know, a future third, maybe even a future fourth, something like that. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets, who are looking to compete this year, if they decide they're not going to sign him. So yeah, I think Brees Hall is good value in the fifth because his upside and potential ceiling is RB1 overall, but it is inherently risky just because there is floor there. Harry saying happy to sell Brees. Someone else can stress about him. Yeah, I think it is a nervy pick. You know, I always say sell running backs when they get into that second contract point, and Brees Hall's a year away. So it's nervous times certainly. As we're coming back around to Ryan, obviously got that one quarterback. Be interesting to see if he grabs a second here. Run through some picks. We've got some quarterbacks off the board. Jackson Dart went 801, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, and then we've got some of those other rookies. Luther Burden to Pat with the 806. Absolutely huge upside. And yeah, could be a boom bust pick. And then Caleb Johnson with the 807. And yes, as Rory says, no surprise, Lewis went Kyren Williams. Right, I'm back on the clock. My app has not loaded. So we've got best available. I've got Chris Godwin, Devontae Adams, Josh Down, Darnell Mooney, James Conner, Jaden Higgins. I am going to grab Chris Godwin. I'm very confident that he's going to come back healthy. All about drafting a value here, and I think that he's the best value. Let's dive across to the best available players in ADP. We've got Joe Mixon, Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Marcus Golden, Jaden Reed. Feels like Jaden Reed, we saw when he was absolutely humming. He was phenomenal last year, was up as a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty circles. So as my sixth wide receiver off the board, happy to grab him here. And let's pray for some bounce back. Hope that the early part of the season was what it was with Jaden Reed rather than this late half. Oh, Rory saying he's surprised he went with Kyren. Yeah, I don't know what to say. He drafts lots of Rams. Lewis loves a Ram. Right, Jaden Higgins goes with 902. Like that value. Matthew Golden goes with the 903. Now, you know, based on ADP, great value there. I think that's potential high upside. I'm not a huge Golden fan, but the ceiling's there. I think the Packers are going to throw the ball around plenty, so it should be interesting. We're starting to get some more tight ends off the board. Lewis Graven, Tucker Craft, obviously Kittle, Hawkinson went in the middle of the 7th round. Starting to fire through. I have to say, I thought this was going to be one of those drafts where people were nursing the clock and using all of their 30 seconds, but it's not been like that at all. People have been rattling through. Deebo Samuel, Josh Downs, people starting to move towards those that fork in the roads moment. I think once you get into the 7th, 8th round, it's where we start to see some of those players who have maybe got 1 year windows. So if you look the guy on the board, the guys like George Kittle, Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Derrick Henry, or you can go for the the long time game, the upside, whether you go rookies like Luther Burden, Caleb Johnson. It feels like at this point you almost need to make a pivot point in your draft strategy and where you're going. For me, let's walk through my draft. I'll just talk you through it. The way I approach a startup, and this is the way I'm always going to approach any startup, is value over everything. I'm not even concerned about positional lineups. I'm not even concerned about trying to set a starting lineup right now. I'm just going to take best value available at all times. That's led me to a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of wide receivers. As I said at the top, those are positions that hold their value longer. Those are the positions that do have that kind of longer term potential in Dynasty. So yeah, it's not to say I wouldn't have drafted running backs if I felt the value was good, but for me, it's hard to keep passing up. And after all, in this format, you can start 5 wide receivers any week. So with potentially Ayuk and Godwin, maybe not fully healthy to start the season, I'm very comfortable grabbing all of these wide receivers, and I'll just take as many pot shots at running back throughout the rest of the draft as possible. I'm quite comfortable, drafting 15 running backs and just waiting and hoping that a couple of them land a starting spot or there's an injury or something like that. It happens every year with running backs. So take the volume approach if you're not going to draft it early. The opposite approach down the other end of the board, we've got EVDOKIOS, obviously grabbed Barkley and McCaffrey at the top. And then, Henry, Chuba Hubbard, David Montgomery, loading out that running back room. Very interesting type of build. We've got Jalen Milroe comes off the board in the 10th. Get the upside, love chasing that ceiling, as we talked about this, with Travis Hunter, Henderson, Loveland, Jalen Milroe, Drake May. It is a very, very young roster that Luke is building here, sprinkled in with a couple of vets in Debo and Matthew Stafford. Could be a nice pivot. If the season doesn't start out as you'd hope, you could always pivot into a productive struggle or sort of rebuild scenario. So I'm back on the clock here. So best available players based on ADP, we've got Isaiah Pacheco, Brian Robinson, Travis Etienne, Cam Scatterbo, Tyron Tracy. Guessing it's telling me that I should probably be thinking about a running back. Darnell Mooney, Raheed Shaheed, Jawan Jennings, and Javonte Williams are my best available. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Grab Javonte Williams. I think that he's undervalued. I think that the fact that they've done basically nothing in Dallas to add anyone to that backfield is at least intriguing. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another running back that I never thought I'd draft, to be honest, in DeAndre Swift. Not a huge fan of his. Have real question marks over the way he runs between the tackles. But Chicago haven't added anyone. Ben Johnson knows what DeAndre Swift is. They're paying him decent money to be the starting running back. So, at this point, as I said, I've loaded up on wide receivers. I'm happy to take some shots at running back, and let's swing for the fences if we're going for upside. If it pays off, I've got potential to win the league. If it doesn't, and Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift both suck, that's fine. I'm built for the long term. I can rebuild very quickly with just subtle pivots off guys, because my wide receivers and quarterbacks are still going to be producing in 2026. Tom's not a fan of that pick. Not shocked. Tom's not a fan of DeAndre Swift. The reason, I guess, why I'm so comfortable taking some slightly older wide receivers in terms of Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Chris Godwin, Amon St. Brown, all on their second contracts, is that when I'm rebuilding, I don't ever believe in kind of a 2-3 year rebuild. I think you can rebuild basically any roster within 12 months. So where I'm saying, yes, I've not got great running backs, I've not got any tight ends at the moment, but I believe I can pivot off this roster if it starts badly, rebuild within 6-9 months, and be good to go to try and compete in 2026. So I'm not worried about Chris Godwin or Ayuk or Waddle aging out, because I think they'll still be in my potential contention window. And after all, you can always find running backs in Dynasty. There's guys like, we can see the last few rounds, people like David Montgomery, Mixon, Connor, Kamara, they're going to potentially be available for a second round pick in season. So if I need to make an aggressive move, if I need to go and try and compete, then I know that there'll be one of these other 11 rosters that will potentially be rebuilding, and I'll go there. Interesting, some rookie running quarterbacks come off the board. So Ryan Judge, obviously slightly scrambling at quarterback, goes and grabs Tyler Shuck, who could potentially be the starter in New Orleans. And then Shedeur Sanders comes off the board in the 11th round. We've got some questions in the chat. If you do want any questions, whether it be about this draft, any Dynasty trades, questions, or just general startup strategy, do let me know. Do you think Addison is better than Flowers? So as a pure player, yes, I think Addison is better than Flowers. However, in terms of situation, I think that Zay Flowers is going to be the clear number one target in Baltimore. I think he's got a clear better quarterback than JJ McCarthy, completely blank there. And I also think he's not got the target competition in terms of Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, stuff like that. So yeah, so for me, long term, I'd still believe both Zay Flowers has got a better chance to produce in year one, but also moving forward. Rory, have my legs recovered from running the marathon yet? No, is the true answer. So what I thought at the marathon was cramp. Turned out I've actually strained my calf. So yeah, I'm still hobbling around and struggling to walk at the moment. Hopefully another 2 weeks and I'll be able to run. But yeah, not in a good way. It's probably not a good idea to run 13 miles when you strain your calf, apparently. So we're coming back up. Pestle is on the clock. So best available based on ADP, we've got Zach Charbonnet, Jonnu Smith, Trey Benson, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson. Best available on my board, Rashid Shaheed, Harold Fannin, Dallas Goedert, Najee Harris, Aaron Jones. So let's just stick with the board. Let's go best available. Rashid Shaheed, and then we'll go Dallas Goedert. So Rashid Shaheed, I don't think people remember how good he was to start the season. Okay, yes, the Saints don't have a quarterback. Yes, it's a different offense. Yes, it's a different offensive play caller. But this guy's explosive, and he can score touchdowns from anywhere on the field. He's going to be fully healthy to start the season. So in the 12th round, I'm happy to take a dart throw. If Shaheed shows even a bit of the production that he did to start last season, I know I can spin him off. If he doesn't, I'm happy with the risk there. So we're going to walk through my draft so far. So Patrick Mahomes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Love, Flowers, Waddle, Ayuk, Geno Smith, Chris Godwin, Jaden Reed, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Shaheed, and Goddard. So this is kind of where we're getting closer to the point where I start to pivot. So the way I draft is that I basically will always go best available value, best available player on my ranks through about 150 players. And then at that point, that's where my strategy will change. I will then start to look at my roster and basically load up. So as I've talked through a couple of times on this draft, I'm pretty weak at running back. I'm pretty desperate at running back. So I'm now just going to attack that in volume. Best available player still will play a part, but I'm probably not going to add many wide receivers. I don't think at this point there's the reason to do so. I think it's a pretty flat tier from these sort of guys to guys that are going to be potentially available on waivers. So I'm just going to attack running back, probably tight ends, sprinkled in a little bit, and we'll go from there. So yeah, looking at this, I've still got 16 players available in my top 150, and then we'll go from there. So we've got Rich in the chat saying, love Shaheed, how worried about the quarterback situation? I'm terrified. It's a true answer. But what I will say is that I think both Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler can push the ball downfield, which is all we need from Shaheed. And he's the kind of player that, yeah, it hurts when he goes bad, but every single time he's on the field, it's spike week after spike week. And if you've got that in your second flex, it's potential league winning upside. So, yeah, I'm very excited about the potential there. Harry's saying it gives him prime Will Fuller vibes. I think the underlying number is a little bit better than prime Will Fuller. I think Shahid's also a little bit more of an all-round guy in terms of run after the catch and route running ability than Will Fuller, but I do get the point. Although with the price, Will Fuller was pretty expensive at times during his career, whereas Rashid Shaheed is dirt cheap right now. So as you can see, we're kind of entering dart throw territory. Some interesting guys gone off the board. Cooper Kupp to Lewis. So again, as I said earlier, Lewis loves Rams, drafts a hell of a lot of Rams. No surprise to see him grab Cooper Kupp. I'm not the biggest fan of Cooper Kupp in Seattle. I think he really deteriorated last year, and I'm a little bit concerned about potential there. Roy's asking, do I think Pat is en route for the 101? So let's walk through Pat's draft. So Justin Jefferson, Caleb Williams, McConkey, Hampton, Penix, Young, Cook, Burden, Downs, Andrews, Williams, Mooney, Mason Taylor. I guess the answer, Rory, is that Pat's draft is high upside. It's boom bust. Caleb Williams, Penix, Young, the ceiling is massive on all of those, but there could be very, very concerning flaws as well. The same with, guys like Hampton and Burden and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's very much a young core with swing for the fences in there. So I don't hate it because I think it gives you pivots. It gives you opportunities to contend now because he's got some nice high upside, competitive pieces like James Cook and Mark Andrews and things like that. But he could quite easily pivot off this. You sell Andrews, you sell Cook, and you're pretty much ready to rebuild. So it's a really nice place to be. Talking about Shaheed here, yes, I think that if you're getting him for free, I think that's absolute theft right now. So yeah, I love that. We're coming back around to me being on the clock here. Best available players for me, we got Tank Bigsby, Travis Kelce. Let's not overthink this. Let's go Tank Bigsby, Travis Kelce. Gives me, yes, okay, Travis Kelce in the 15th round. It might only give me 1 year, but if that helps him win a title, I'm very happy with that. Got some high upside. I can probably draft some younger tight ends, some potential there. And as I said, I'm going to start taking some flyers at running back. So Tank Bigsby, I know everybody's obsessed with Bashal Tutin, but Tank Bigsby looked all right last year. He got injured, he struggled with that, but I wouldn't be shocked if Tank Bigsby is the lead back in Jacksonville this year. Right, we've got some more questions in the chat. El Barto saying, currently around 21 in my Dynasty. My only QBs are May and Lawrence. I didn't like the QBs that are available and didn't want to reach for one of the best available are Ewers and Howe. Who to stash? The true answer is probably neither. I think once you get to that point in your draft, they're all lottery tickets. There's no guarantee. I don't think Sam Howell, I don't think Quinn Ewers are ever going to be a reliable starting quarterback. You're probably looking for an injury replacement. So do you go and get, trying to think of some of the better backups, Tyrod Taylor? Do you go and get Josh Dobbs or someone like that, where if the starter gets injured, you could potentially have a competence backup, because I don't think anyone at that point in the draft is likely to be a starter. We will be pausing this draft once the 15-12 is made, but I will walk through the draft board, walk through some of my favorite picks, values, and answer any questions you still have. So feel free to get them in the comments down below. Kane saying was hoping to get James in the slow draft. So that's Daniel Jones went 15.02 to Pestle. As I said, after this next pick, we're going to be slowing down the draft. It will be shifting to a 12-hour clock, which I'm just going to quickly do now, but I can't do that from my computer. So I will adjust that slightly from the app. But we will walk you through the draft board in 1 second. If anybody has got any questions, feel free to fire them in and I will work through them as we're working through the board. Right. Rory has got a question. He's saying, where would you draft Kelsey in a full point premium startup? That's a tough question. I think it's about risk, isn't it? Because it's basically what you're saying is, where would you put 1 year of elite tight end production? It's probably around round 10, because I don't think it's worth a first round pick in that format, which I normally say first round picks are sort of anything north of round 8, so sort of 7 above. But he's definitely worth a high second. So yeah, I'd probably say around round 10. But you've got to understand, you're making that draft pick. There's no future resale value. There's probably no production coming with that in 2026. So you've just got to almost make the draft pick, light it on fire, and go from there. Let's quickly walk through some of the drafts. Let's go to Ryan. I feel like Ryan took a bit of a pelter in this draft, so we'll walk through his roster. So he went Bowers in the first, Genty, Marvin Harrison, Judkins, Worthy, Warren, Richardson, Tyreek Hill, Golden, and then he grabbed some quarterbacks in Russell Wilson, Tyler Shuck, Terrence Ferguson, A.D. Mitchell, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Blue. So very young, plenty of young core pieces in terms of Bowers, Genty, Harrison, Judkins, Worthy, Warren. That's a very young core to be building around there. Obviously threw in the casual vet with Tyreek Hill here, which is interesting. And then Russell Wilson, I guess he was just needing a starter there. This is the kind of roster that, if perhaps he'd have grabbed someone else other than Tyreek or Russell Wilson, you could say this is a productive struggle building around 2026 and beyond. But yeah, it's an interesting roster there, Ryan. Pestle drafting from the 11. Not sure if he's happy with his draft so far or not yet. So let's walk through it, Pestle. So CeeDee Lamb, Jamal Gibbs at the 111-202 turn. Then Kyler, Odunze, Baker, Trey Harris, RJ Harvey, Ricky Pearsall, Jaden Higgins, and Njoku, Scatterbo, Royals, Harris, Arroyo, Jones. So very young core. There's not many. We've got Najee Harris, Njoku, Baker, Kyler are the only, and CeeDee Lamb are the only guys on second contracts there. So it's a very young core. I guess the 5th round for Baker, normally that's great value. I guess with where the rest of the quarterbacks go, maybe we're paying for last season. I don't know if we're going to see a drop down slightly in that production. Rome Odunze is the big swing, isn't it? The 4-11, if he's the prospect we hoped he would be, that's a great pick. If he turns out to be the player we saw last year, that's a significant reach and probably not going to get much return on that investment there. But I don't hate it, Pestle. I think it's a nice build. It's got some upside. So very happy with that. It's I love a fast dynasty startup, Pestle. It is sure great fun. Phil saying that's hard, 30 seconds but fun. Went neighbors, just don't have many shares and still thought I'd get 2 good QBs. So let's walk through his roster. He is Riverman here. So we got neighbors 108 and then Herbert and Lawrence. I mean, to me, Herbert and Lawrence should be first round picks. So the fact that you're able to scoop up both of those in the second and third, that's an incredible start to pair with neighbors. And then we've got Devonta Smith. We talked about Breece Hall earlier in terms of high upside swing. Jordan Addison, I think, is great value at the 608. Kittle, he's a elite tight end, obviously aging, but just got that new contract, so should be fine for a few years. And then went a little bit old at wide receiver, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley. I think basically what we're saying is that Phil got to about round 6, was really happy with his roster and went, I think I can win this year. So that's where he's gone Kittle, Evans, Adams, Ridley. I'm not sure about the Sanders pick at the 11th round. We'll maybe see how that plays out, and then added some running backs with potential. So, yeah, really interesting. Obviously, we'll be keen to see how he plays the rest of the 13 rounds at the running back position. Needs some dart throws, needs some upside there because Breece Hall and not much else. But yeah, it's a really interesting roster there, Phil. If you're watching, let me know which is your favorite roster on the board, and we will talk through each of them Ryan's got a question in the chat. Would you send Olave or Ayuk for CMC, 10-team Dynasty? No, I wouldn't. The only way I do that is if I think I could win this year and I was perhaps running back needy, but even then, I think you're giving up too much value in Olave and Ayuk. I know if you look at the board here, Olave went 5'6", Christian McCaffrey went 5'11", and then we're over here, Brandon Ayuk went 6'12". So I guess ADP consensus is saying that they value CMC over Ayuk. But yeah, for me, just to give you an idea of my trade values, so I've got CMC is worth 18 points. I've then got Chris Olave's with 30, Brandon Ayuk's worth 26. So yeah, I mean, to me, you're talking the difference between CMC and Brandon Ayuk is worth about a second-round pick. So yeah, not enough for me. Kane Francis said, not happy with my QB room. Would have ideally had one more added in round 8 or 9. Kane, I presume this is Killer Kane. So we've gone Bijan in the first, Brian Thomas in the second. So playing quarterback roulette, no quarterback through 2 rounds. Did grab Bo Nix in the third, which is nice value. But as you said, didn't add perhaps that third quarterback that would make you feel a lot more comfortable. If he'd have got perhaps Darnold or Stafford on the way back in the 8th round, I'd feel a hell of a lot more better about that quarterback room. But some interesting running backs. Obviously, Bucky Irving, if he can repeat last year with no Liam Cohen, that's incredible value there. TJ Hawkinson, another year removed from the injury, should be interesting. And then some high upside dart throws. Jerry Jeudy, Keon Coleman, Jamon Jennings, Tank Dell, Alec Umanor. So, yeah, I quite like the roster, Kane. I agree with you. I think probably another quarterback added in there. But some interesting picks. And that is it. We are through 15 rounds. We will continue to draft over the next few weeks. As you can see, it is a 12-hour clock, which is what I do in all my Dynasty leagues. No pause. Plenty of people drafting from all over the world. So we just let 12 hours run. It very rarely takes 12 hours for people on the clock. But as you can see, in the 16th, we got Roshan Johnson, Hunter Henry, K. Dotton, Devin Neal, Pat Bryant. So interested to see what I add. I will probably tweet out this final roster once I've made the picks. But best value, best pick, worst pick. Let me know. If you want to slate my roster, feel free to dive in the comments. And of course, while you're there, hit the subscribe button because we've got plenty more content coming your way. It's best ball season. Tom and Tyler are absolutely crushing it. And I'll have weekly Dynasty shows to keep you filled up. And we'll be back very soon.